And just like that, it's Monday again. Not our pop because all right, out of the weekend into the week. And how about a little bit of the midday show? All right. I'm Russ Kane. This is the midday show. You ever had a day when you think I may have had one too many espressos? Today could be that day. I know you're watching from America. Hi to everybody in America and all over the world. But the weather here in London, where the show comes out of, is absolute pants. It's cold, it's grey, it's wet. What are we doing living here? Speaking of which, you know him. You love him. I'm extending this now because of his success. Within a 10-mile radius of the Tolworth Tower, he is the king of comedy. Ladies and gentlemen, Neil Longie.
Thank you. Thank you very much indeed. Yes, I had a couple of comedy gigs over the weekend. I headlined in Deal. You ever been to Deal in Kent?
Probably. I don't know. Maybe.
It's all the way to Dover and then beyond.
Christ. Oh, Jesus. Well, might as well go to France.
But it was really nice. Also on the bill was, keep an eye out for this name, AMJ, Adam Morrison Jones. Very good.
Yeah. Fresh comedy, fresh material.
Oh, he's very good.
Yeah,
he's very good.
Yeah.
And had another gig yesterday in Battersea, and I did a disco gig on Saturday.
Dear God.
Quite a busy weekend, plus a radio show Sunday afternoon. So busy.
What radio? What Radio Jackie?
Yeah.
God, they work you hard, boy.
Doing a bit of moonlighting, yeah.
Moonlighting. What was that? It was Leo Say, wasn't it? Deal or no deal?
It was definitely Deal.
I had a nothing weekend. I went, hi, RVB. Hello, Robert Van Buren. Yeah, it's nice. Now, here's the thing. What did I do? Saturday, went up to, went into town, bumped into William Hanson, King of Etiquette, for the second time. Yeah. I congratulated him on his tour. Anyway, it's another story. In the Wings is our first guest of the week. I'm impressed because she's a doctor. Are you feeling all right? Any aches and pains, anything? Because this is the only time.
I'm sure. I know this lady. I've spoken to her before. Has she been on before?
I don't know what I had for breakfast. Oh, yeah, I did. Nothing. 2 espressos. This is about everybody. The only time you will get to see a doctor. So enjoy it, because you try it any other way. Forget it. Ain't going to happen. Ladies and gentlemen, Dr. Ritz is in the house.
Hi, Russ. Hi, Neil.
Hey,
How
Dr.
are you
Ritz.
Doing?
Have you been on before, Dr. Ritz? I'm sure we've spoken before.
We have, and I think it was so fantastic. You wanted me back.
Of course I did. Absolutely. You bet.
But you've forgotten all about it.
Well, Dr. Ritz, put it this way. I'm on a lot of meds, and it's messed up my memory. It really has.
I do remember. That's why I recognised you. So
I recognise the books.
The magic gift of living in the moment.
That's the thing. I live in the moment.
Which leads us very nicely, probably, into our conversation. Yes.
Yeah.
Well, because we're all overly busy minds. I mean, for example, literally just then, I knew I'd seen you before. I knew you'd been on before, but I couldn't quite place
Join the dots.
Yeah, couldn't quite join the dots. So what is that? I don't think I'm going crazy.
You're going crazy.
Well,
you're old and you're going crazy.
Thanks.
It just sounds like you had such a busy weekend that your brain is just catching up now. That's what sounds like it happened.
But it never catches up. There's that meme that goes around. My mind is like a computer. It's got 8 tabs open. There's music playing on one. There's something else on another. There's something. I need a major defrag. What do I do?
Reboot, mate. Unplug and restart.
Yeah. That was funny because I was actually interviewed about this morning about why I had an interview with the press. Why do we find it so hard to rest? Why do we feel so guilty to rest?
Oh, brilliant. That is because I don't rest. You may have gathered. I don't rest. I have to get myself, Dr. Ritz, into such a state of exhaustion before I can even think about going to bed.
And that's that cycle of burnout. Like I'll push until my body says, no more, please, just stop. Just turn it off.
And it's happened to me, and I see myself falling back into the old patterns. I can start to tell I don't feel as good. I feel this kind of weight in my body, if you like, this sort of almost emotional weight. It's weird. And then just sort of I don't know. It's like I need a pep, something to pep me up. But I think I can offer a theory why we find it so hard to rest, because we've been taught it's this westernized idea, isn't it? Go, 24-hour city. The idea of being more productive by slowing down and doing less.
Yes.
Is absolute anathema to our Western minds, isn't it? The idea that if you're mindful and take some time to meditate, be mindful or whatever, that will actually create more time. And this do mentality is actually a really false economy, which is only damaging us. Doesn't seem to register.
But
Am I
Dr.
right?
Ritz, can I just jump in for a sec? And welcome back to the show, by the way.
Yeah,
Grandpa, that is a very rude comment. Don't be silly. Can we just, first of all, because this is coming in from northeastern United States. Good day from a snowy New York. That's New York State, not New York, the city. By the way, it's my wife's birthday. Happy birthday, Mrs. Brown.
Happy birthday,
and your boys.
Brown.
No, you won't get that joke in America. Right. When you're freelance, and I've been freelance for, I don't know, 35, 40 years, right? When you're freelance, you know you're only as good as your next job. Yeah? Bear with. You agreeing with that?
No, but I'll tell you why in a minute.
I was asking our fabulous guest. I can ask you anytime. I can't ask our guest anytime. She's a busy person. So when you're freelance, you're like...
I'll take a rest.
It's very difficult to get out of the mentality because you got a monkey on your back, right? You got a monkey on your back saying, I got to pay the rent, got to pay the mortgage, got to buy the food, got to pay off bloody storage down at City Airport. I got to keep working. And you feel guilty if you're not working. It's a horrible cycle. I don't enjoy it. I can't pretend I do.
And I think it's such a common one. It reminds me of, I worked for quite a large organization, a large bank, Lloyd's Bank. You've probably heard of them if you're in the UK.
No, never heard of them. Lloyd Beanie Bank. Okay.
And I worked with them for about 4 years doing quite a big program with about 2,000 of their senior leaders.
Wow.
And one of the questions that I asked them was, as these, I'd work with a cohort of about 200 at a time, taking them through these workshops, and some had direct.
So there'd be 200 in the audience, you say?
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
And this was pre-COVID, so I would do it in live events in London first.
Yeah.
And then after COVID, it went online. And I'd always start the session by asking people, what does it mean to be successful to you? What does it mean?
Oh, wow.
And
huge question.
It was fascinating how people would say, and if I was to, amalgamate it all, busyness was the badge of honor. By being busy, by getting that next promotion, by working up the ladder. And I redefined it as, actually, what if success meant that you were resilient? And resilience being that you know when to say yes, you know when to say no, you know when to prioritize work, you know when to prioritize your family, your friends. And gosh, it was like a light bulb moment of people being like, yes, exactly. That's what I would like to do. But I'm in this hamster wheel of chasing the next thing, like exactly what you were saying, Russ.
Back in the 90s, this term came into my consciousness. It was used in quite a few sort of self-help type books back then, busyholism. Being a busyholic. Like it literally was a badge of honor. The more busy you are, the more you suffered, if you like, for your art, the better you are. But if you break it down, ultimately what anyone wants, I would have thought, is to feel happy and to feel well-being. And so, and generally in our Western minds, in my opinion, that comes down to financial success and money. It's what we associate it with. I'm not saying I'm not going so far the other way and saying, oh no, I can live on air and light alone. I don't need money. Not at all. I've got no problem with money. Money's a great thing. But to make it the be all and end all, which people judge their success or failure as a person with, is probably not serving us, particularly if it's this over busyness to the point of burnout. and then when you're burnt out and you've got nothing left to offer, you're not very good at making money anyway. So, like I said earlier, it's a false economy, isn't it?
Can I chip in? I'll give you a great example why I think busyness. I hate busyness. It's stupid. It is stupid. But when I was a corporate writer for 30 years, I guess. I worked for all the blue chip companies, came in, did whatever it needed to be done, and rode out like a gunslinger. And I couldn't wait to leave, right? And writing all their corporate stuff. And I've never forgotten, there was one very senior woman, and she came into her office and walked in and she said, look at this. I didn't have any chance over the weekend because I was answering, and look at this. I've got 100 emails to answer. And I sat there thinking, well, you're an idiot. I mean, why are you pleased you've got 100 emails? That's not like great. That's not a valuation of success. That's just you're doing too much and you have absolutely no life outside of this office. I kind of, well, if she wasn't so vile, I would have felt sorry for her, but I didn't. She was just... Anyway, I mean, I wasn't working for her. She was part of the team that I was, they were doing a conference, doesn't matter what else. Anyway, I was just stunned that she seemed so pleased. Oh, there's 100, like it made her important.
Badge of honor.
Yeah,
I wonder if that was down to self-esteem and this idea that, your self-worth is based on if other people think I'm important.
Yeah.
Then that makes me important rather than.
But then it would be called other worth.
Strip it all away, strip everything away, and you can still be important.
You're right, Dr. Ritz, because if that was true, it would be called other worth, not self-worth. Self-worth is exactly that. It comes from yourself. So we need to learn to, I suppose, chart our own path and set our own values into what makes us the happiest and follow that. And within reasonable bounds of, not harming anyone, frankly, that's no one else's business. What makes us feel good.
The hell with it. The thing about money, Dr. Ritz, would you agree with this? By the way, are you okay if we call you Dr. Ritz? Is that all right? What would you prefer?
Absolutely. Of course.
Oh, you're okay with that. Okay,
I can't. I was trying to join the chat because I absolutely loved what Graham said.
Oh, what Graham? What? Where? Oh, you like what he said? No, don't encourage him, please.
Don't encourage him, Doctor, please.
No. Oh, jeez. No, you're falling into the trap.
Anyway, I can't join the chat. I'm just saying hi to everybody.
Right. The point I was going to make about that Neil said, and then I want to bounce into something else that you said, because I think this is a fantastic conversation. I have no problem with money, but I don't have it as like a badge of honor. To me, it just means if I had it, it just means freedom. It doesn't mean I want anything. There's nothing I actually want physically. I don't want to go into a jeweler's on Hatton Garden and buy a Rolex. I don't want to do anything like that. It's not about material possessions. It's freedom up here that you can give a big FU to people that you don't want to be with if you can afford to do it. That's all that money does.
And that's the thing. If you break it down a little bit, and like you said, Doctor, strip it all away. Most people, if you said, the coaching question is, and what will that give you? People say, I want money, and what will that give you? Well, then I'll be free. There it is. It's freedom you're seeking. I want money. What would it give you? Security. Respect. It's the desire behind the desire. So
can you give yourself freedom? Can you give yourself respect? That's where I'd be digging in as a
psychologist. Oh man, what a question.
And the rest of the conversation, and we could talk for days, would be on exactly how to do that without needing that validation of others. I interviewed a wonderful lady called Helen Snape, and her whole body of work.
Helen. She's great.
We had her on the show, being a reformed people pleaser. I think it goes back to when, almost I think parts of us have evolved and parts of us haven't, and there's still this fear of being cast out of the tribe. Which in the past would mean death.
People pleasing is actually a form of self-sabotage.
That's brilliant. Please tell us more.
Because when you are saying yes to someone else, and specifically when that yes is going against the grain of your need, you're saying no to yourself. So yes to someone else when you don't agree with it, you don't want to do it, but you're a people pleaser, is saying no to yourself. And when you constantly say no to yourself, that's self-sabotage. And often people with people pleasing, I think they're waiting for other people to stop asking them.
Which is never going to happen.
Expand on that.
for example, I won't have to say no because I just won't get asked to do it. For example, that might, be a way of not having to people please.
So they try and not avoid it rather than sort of facing the issue directly,
rather than
because they don't want to upset anybody.
Yeah, rather than having the esteem and the confidence, which is hard work, to be able to say, thank you for asking me that, or, thank you for thinking of me for that request. I'd love to be able to help, but right now, I'm sorry, I don't have the capacity to help. And that's the opposite of self-sabotage, because that's saying I'm taking responsibility for me. I'm not asking you to not ask me. You can still ask me. You're an adult. You can ask for your needs. But as another adult, I can also take time, think about it, and ask myself, does it work for me? And how can I say no by having firm and kind boundaries?
I love that.
Now, that's beautifully stated.
I love
boundaries
that.
is a big thing.
Firm and kind boundaries.
Firm but kind.
I'm so pleased you came back. This is bloody marvellous, quite frankly.
This is why we wanted you back.
These are so many key issues. I have learned, thank God, at my advanced years, to be able to say, I'm sorry, no. So if it's a favour, and it takes ages, but my view is, I'd like your professional opinion on this. My view is, if they get really pissed off with me, well, then they weren't very nice in the first place.
But also, if they get pissed off with you, that's okay. That's not your.
No, it is okay. It is okay.
It's not your responsibility to.
But it's also, but Dr. Riss, it's also disappointing, isn't it? Not for them, but you've got somebody you think they're pretty nice, and I've got no specific examples. I'm just I'm spitballing here, as they say in the States, and somebody says, "Could you do this?" And you go, "No, not really. I mean, I could do it within my abilities. Do I want to do it? Is another question." So the answer is no. And it's like, oh, and if they get upset, well, that's not my problem. It's just, but it is disappointing because you thought maybe you knew them, or maybe you're just disappointed in humankind.
I think it's tricky there, because I would wonder, what's the disappointment about? Is it that you needed them to have a reaction which validates your needs?
Nice.
No, not at all. It's like if you thought someone was a silly example. I don't know, somebody you kind of know. I'm not talking about a close friend, because you'd walk across, if you're a decent close friend, and if you've got 5, you're doing great. I mean, proper friends, 3 o'clock in the morning, phone call friends. I need you to come over. You just be there, all right? I've got some that they phoned me. That was it. But somebody you've not about them, but somebody on the periphery, somebody and you thought they were okay. They ask you to do something. It's usually a favor. I don't mean, can you take me to Tesco's? I mean, it's a bit more than that, right? A big favor. And you think, well, no, not really, because that's a proper job. Or no. So the disappointment is, you think, not what they think of you. It's like, oh, I misjudged them. I feel stupid because I misjudged them. I thought they were an okay person. Turns out they're not.
And that's an interesting way of looking at it. But I also liked your take on it, Dr. Ritz, as well. Are we looking for that internal self-validation? Does it come back to that people-pleasing? Do we need that positive response from other people to feel good about ourselves?
Yeah, well, and I think this is the thing where we can sometimes get a bit, can all kind of jumble together. Often people's responses are more about them than about you. So in that situation, I guess what I was saying, Russ, is maybe you needed them to respond in a way it was like, okay, you've said no, I can respect that. But their response was maybe a bit disappointing to you, because they're like, oh, you've let me down. I can't believe you've said no, whatever it might be. But what I'm trying to say is their response is going to be a reflection of themselves rather than it being.
I agree with that.
It is said if you point a finger, there's 3 pointing back at you.
Yeah.
It's that kind of thing. It's projection. That's the term, isn't it?
Yeah.
Am I right?
And then I would use that as information. So, for example, being a human being is about being fluid and flexible. So, if that person's disappointed you, okay, I've let them know by boundary. They're kicking off about it. I'm going to leave it with them. That's their responsibility to fix. Or we can maybe have an adult to adult conversation about it where we're both a bit rational. So you could go that way. Then you might find it becomes a pattern. So it's when it becomes a pattern that then that gives you evidence. what's this relationship built on? Is this relationship built on me only giving to them? And then if it is, then it's up to me to reevaluate that and to maybe think, is this person a friend anyway? Like you were saying,
that's something I've done recently.
Yes.
I had to put boundaries in where I least expected to, and they're strong boundaries. They are firm boundaries. And until that person is ready to have an adult conversation about it, as far as I'm concerned, for now, that's it.
Yeah.
And that's the boundary. It got to a point and I just went, you know what? No. There's a brilliant question from Liz here, which I'd like to pop up.
Yes.
We hear a lot about this nowadays, the concept of coercive control. What if someone is a forced people pleaser, as in they are scared of this person, or that person might harm them if they don't please that person, i.e. coercive control?
I would be asking you to get professional support then, so that you're able to handle this in a very, very safe way first. And, it's hard for me to really answer that without, I guess every situation is so nuanced from that perspective. So I don't want to say anything that then influences someone to go and do something which could be unsafe.
And I completely respect that. Good boundary.
Yeah. But with the boundaries, I guess coming back to it from that perspective is, I liked what you said there, Neil. It is really important that the boundaries are firm, because the opposite of a firm boundary is a leaky boundary. And when you have a leaky boundary, you're giving someone a totally mixed message. So then actually they're not going to respect you. They're not going to hopefully, prescribe to your boundary. They're like, oh, wait, 1 minute it's this, then we're back to this, then we're back to this. The likelihood is when you've been doing something a certain way for a long time, like saying yes, 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 when you start to say no, it is going to have a ripple effect. And it's going to probably lead to quite a few adult tantrums from the people that you've said no to.
Oh, yeah. Yes, that's fairly familiar to me.
Where you've kind of got to hold on to the ropes and be really firm. Check in with yourself and check in with your support system. Who's backing you? Who's been telling you for a while, you need to put boundaries down. You need to start saying no. Because you're going to probably have some of those people in your corner that have seen this behavior in you and are advocating for you to say no.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And I support other people in that.
I'm going to give a bit of professional advice. Most of our audience of a demographic, this may not apply, but bear with me for a sec. When I was starting off in the wonderful world of show, every charity and what I was doing was getting ludicrously big, to my amazement, because I was just tagging along with very successful people, and it worked. And I was asked by endless charities and other things, would I come and do this? Would I come and do that? And for years I would do it because I felt behooved to do so. Until I thought, this is absolutely ridiculous. This is nuts. I can't. I'm exhausted from this, and I stopped. So, and nothing happened. The world kept turning. It was fine, And would you come to this dinner and that? No, I won't. I'll give you a donation. I just don't want to sit having rubber chicken and making polite conversation for several hours dressed in a tuxedo. The world kept turning, And
I think also, when we do develop that wonderful skill of being true to ourselves, we become a much more, maybe integrated person. And then we tend to, if you like, attract the opportunities that are right for us, and the other ones pass us by when we're more deliberate about it. I think there's a saying in Hollywood, desperation stinks, if you know what I mean. And if someone's desperately trying to win, because I meet people like that, they so want to be liked that they come on too strong. And it's like, I don't want to be nasty, I don't want to be rude, but it's just
sod off.
It's not serving you anyway. Well, I put it in slightly kind of worse than you did, Russ, but I know what you mean. Please. You're making a lot of sense, Doc.
Yeah.
Well, it's interesting you say all this, because I guess this is why I'm here today, and why you had me on the first time is everything that we're talking about here is the basis of Reflect with Dr. Ritz. So do you remember I spoke about that last time? That's my online WhatsApp journal, which is all about the art of mastering your
Very
relationship
much. I
with
do remember
yourself.
that well. Let me pop it on the screen. What's the web address that people can go to?
Let me put it on the private chat because I
Sure,
can't
and
seem to.
I'll do a cheeky copy and paste.
Yes, please.
Look
Thank
at these
you.
tech kids. These tech kids. It's like doing a show with Elon Musk. It's fantastic. By the way,
this
the
is
other
it.
little
So,
the other little piece of advice I would give to anybody, if anybody says to you, "Go and do this. It's great for your profile," just say no. It's never great for your profile. It's absolute nonsense.
and I think, but that's the basis of what you're saying, isn't it, Russ? That when you maybe don't know yourself so well, you will agree to whatever anybody's asking of you or whatever anyone's telling you. And so Reflect with Dr. Ritz, my journaling platform, it really is. And, I've been recently asked to write a book. So I've been starting to think about what is the book going to be about and how can I, link it to Reflect with Dr. Ritz. And we came up with something brilliant, I think, which is actually what, my purpose of what I do as a psychologist, how I've been trained, what my journal is all about, is people for so long have put themselves last on the list. They're great at helping other people. They're great at knowing everybody else's needs. But potentially, I think people in the Western world, what they aren't so great at doing is having a relationship with themselves. So the Reflect with Dr. Ritz is the art of mastering your relationship with yourself, getting to know, because I don't think you could put boundaries down until you know what your needs are, until you know what you need as a person. As you said, Russ, I realized what I needed was to not eat rubber chicken and have meaningless conversations. I know what I needed was probably rest or to go and see my best mate or to read a book, whatever it was going to be to
But
fill
it
up.
doesn't mean, just to jump in, it doesn't mean that I was dissing the organization. I want to be clear. If
Not
it's
at
something
all.
that I believed in, I'm happy to make a donation. I'll do that, which is the only reason I'm there anyway. And I always say, save your money. I won't bother to come, and it costs, I know, because I used to do umpteen events. I mean, hundreds. And I know what it costs. So save yourself some money. I'll give you a donation and it'll save us both a lot of hassle. That's how I look at it. And the other thing is, I think I go into everything and I go, what do they really want? What do they want? Do they want me to be a friend of theirs because we just get on? Or do they want something? And I know that's a cynical view, but boy, oh boy, does it protect you from a lot of stuff. It really does.
And I guess because you can take it back to yourself, what do they want? And does that work with what I need?
Yeah.
Do I need someone who needs me to just show up to give them what they need? Or do I need something that's mutually beneficial?
Exactly, because the best relationships are a dance, whether it's an intimate relationship or a business relationship or even a casual relationship, even an online radio interview. It's back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. And things that are like that tend to feel energizing and you kind of want to do more of it. It's kind of that flow state thing, that effortless effort kind of thing. If it feels draining, it's probably not right. And just back to what you said before, when I did some volunteer NLP, a friend of mine started a charity and she converted her garden shed into a therapy room. You couldn't make it up, but she really did. But I was doing some volunteer NLP with people, and I'd find that with women particularly, it's exactly what you said, putting everyone else's needs first apart from them. And then they wonder why they feel burnt out and resentful, and then probably blame themselves for feeling resentful because nice people don't have feelings like that. That's the kind of thing that I saw. And
what is the word resentful you're using? Hang on, where does resentful come in? Explain that.
If you continuously, and correct me, doctor, if I'm wrong, people please, some part of you knows it's not right, and that part of you will start to resent it. And then, because we've been all conditioned that we're supposed to be good people and well-mannered and polite, again, particularly women, it's a generalization, but in my experience, it was particularly, they will then start to resent it, but then blame themselves for having those feelings in the first place because nice people don't have those feelings.
I think it can go two ways. I think it can be resentful towards the self and then annoyed at the self, and then also resentful to other people. And then and then continuing to not say anything. So you hold on to that resentment. But coming back to relationships, absolutely, I think relationships are a flow, they're a give and a take. But I think one of the most fundamental parts of the relationship is that when you're not in the flow, and when you have the bust up or the argument, because that's so normal and natural. I do not advocate for relationships that are just happy and calm all the time. That's not realistic. But whether that's with your partner, your parents, your children, your siblings, your friends, when you have that bust up, the fundamental part of the relationship is repair. It's the ability to have humility, to reflect, to communicate, and to move forward.
Well said, but what if the other person was the reason that you had to put the boundaries down in the first place and they're not willing to have that adult conversation?
Oh, good one.
Yeah, absolutely. And that does happen. That absolutely does happen. So when that, when something like that was to happen, it can just be about checking in and not necessarily correcting, but just checking in. So it might be something like, so, when you asked me to do that thing, and then I said no because it didn't work for me, how I experienced that afterwards was that you found that maybe a bit difficult to hear, and then you didn't want to talk to me. Is that correct, or am I missing something? So you're inviting them in to say, hey, let's talk about it. I said no, and you found that really hard. Let's talk about that. And then if you continue to get the shutdown, it then goes back to the reevaluation.
And walk us through that again, if you would.
So the reevaluation,
I really like that.
Coming back to your needs. So I'm getting this information from this person that I've put a boundary down. They're not happy with it, but they're also not willing to talk to me about it. I think I've tried like a few times that I feel like I have tried. And actually, is this relationship continuing to work for me?
Can you ask yourself the question this? It's not particularly a rhetorical question. It's like, what the hell am I getting out of this?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, as I go through life and I look at it and it's a simple question. What the hell am I getting out of this? Like nothing, or I'm getting aggravation, or this is an absolute one-way street, or they're picking my brains, or whatever, and I think, it's adding nothing to my life whatsoever. I'm done with it.
It happened to me last week.
I'll be civil, I'll be polite, but you're not coming in.
That's the firm, kind boundary. So it happened to me last week. My friend had invited me to an event, and it was a new event that she was doing. And she was so excited about it. And because I love my friend, I really wanted to be there and I really wanted to support her. But the theme of the event, I knew, was actually going to take so much energy from me. And it's been quite a crazy, month or so for me. I've done quite a few appearances. I've done so much talking that, a bit like what you were saying, Russ, I just needed to center in and decompress. And I said to this lovely friend, I said, I really admire this event that you're putting on, but actually I'm not going to be able to attend it because it's going to take more energy away from me. And in the evenings, I want to do things that fill my energy up. So I'm happy to meet just me and you and go for a dinner and catch up, but I'm not able to do that. And that friend heard it. They listened to it. They said, it's a shame you're not going to be there because I'd really value your input. And that was the end of it. But what's interesting is that if I hadn't been firm on my boundary and if I hadn't known what my needs are, when my friend had said, that's a shame, I could have thought, oh God, I've let her down. I better just go to this event.
The amount of people I know that operate from guilt as their basic premise. I know people that do that, and I try and talk them out of it because the way you've articulated it is so much healthier.
But it's instilled in us, isn't it? It's instilled in us.
How do we begin this process? And this might segue nicely as telling us about your online journal, Reflect with Dr. Ritz. So feel free to segue into that. But how do we get to know ourselves to that brilliant level that you just articulated, Doctor?
That's it. I think journaling is a fantastic way to get to know yourself because it starts to get you to have a conversation with yourself, and not the one that's negative where it's like, I should have done this, I didn't do that, I could have done this, why didn't I do that? But it's in a way where we're using neuroscience. So this is what Reflect with Dr. Ritz is. It's all about habit formation and neuroscience of, I won't just get to know myself when I'm burning out, I'm going to get to know myself every day. So you get 3 messages at the end of every day. and they follow a repetitive pattern, which is the first one is actually, what am I grateful for? What's gone well today that I'm really proud of and that's made me feel good? Because we don't focus on those points, we just let them brush off us, chasing the next high. Then the second question is, what's my 1% improvement for tomorrow? What's the one thing that I could do to give myself a marginal gain that is likely to make me feel that little bit better that I didn't do today? Maybe it's not scrolling on social media and reading a physical book for 10 minutes. Maybe it's going outside, getting fresh air. Maybe it's saying no to that person. And then the final question is, what's your non-negotiable goal for tomorrow? What's that one thing you've been putting off for yourself that you just know if you did it, it's going to give you a sense of mastery and achievement? Then in the morning at 6 a.m., I want to be the first thing that people read. So I send an affirmation every morning to help you set your intention for the day. So for example, I'll just read you this morning's one. It would have sounded... What did it say? This morning's one that said, the best time to start isn't when I think I'm ready, it's now. So I want to be that psychologist in your pocket, pepping you on, that even if you have a little bit of a blip through your day, if you can't anchor yourself, if you can't think what you need, you go back to that affirmation and it just hopefully puts you in that mindset of, yeah, what do I need? How can I make today count for me? What do I need to do for me? And then what we tend to see with journaling and with habit formation is that when you receive these messages regularly, your brain actually loves patterns. So your brain is going to start to pick that up and it's going to stick to you like glue. And every time you say an affirmation to yourself, every time you think about what are you grateful for? What do you want to do better tomorrow? What's your goal for tomorrow? That's going to release your feel-good hormone, dopamine, and it just reinforces the habit loop. So over time, these small changes that you're making of getting to know yourself, they become lasting habits rather than I'm burnt out, let me make some quick changes, and then I'll go back to burning out. And then I'm quick changes and back to burning out. So rather than living life like this,
it's sustainable.
Yeah.
It's sustainable.
It's sustainable.
Now, this is
free. It's free. It's free for 60 days. You don't know commitment because it takes around 66 days for a habit to form. And I want to make it accessible to as many people as possible. And then after that, it's £3 a month, cheaper than a monthly coffee.
Limit, right. Seeing the price of coffee? It's insanity. Now, let's look at this. Kimmy Lashmar. Hi, Kimmy. Now, hang on. My mum's saying was we all have to do things we don't want to do. True. But it's true, though, isn't it? And I believe it's being extremely selfish not to support a friend. If everyone was so selfish, interesting use of the word selfish, no one would ever support you.
But that attitude, Kim, and a lot of our parents would have had that attitude, it goes back to this kind of guilt-based stuff that we were talking about, is putting everyone else's desires ahead of your own, but not including yourself in the process.
So, Kimmy, I just want
to say... It's like saying love thy neighbour as thyself, not love thy neighbour instead of thyself. That's kind of that attitude, isn't it? If I may use that reference.
Yeah, I think it's an interesting one, isn't it? Because it's the message you've been given. And so, when those messages are repeated to you at such a young age from your caregivers, you take them in and you believe them and they become part of your self-esteem and your self-worth. So, if I don't help others, that means I'm not a good person. It means I'm selfish. And then you berate yourself for that. Whereas actually, Kimmy, I want you to know that you can help yourself and help others. And actually, if you help yourself first, you're much more likely to be more helpful to others. And, aeroplanes can teach us about this because they say,
I was going to say that,
your own oxygen mask before helping anyone else. Because if you're out of oxygen, then you're going to be on the floor and then you're no help to anybody.
It's like saying, would you like to give from a state of overflow or from a state of emptiness? Yeah. And the way that's phrased, Kimmy, that is really encouraging people to give from a place of emptiness and then burning out and then berating ourselves. And it's the complete opposite of what we're talking about here. I think the doctor's right. It is possible to have both, but you've got to put your own oxygen mask on first. Because if you're empty, you've got nothing to give anyone else. Nothing.
And self-care is not selfish. It's essential.
There's a lot of selfish people out there. Let's not kid ourselves. There's a lot of people. It's just me. What can I get out of this relationship? What can I get out of this person? Me, and just promoting themselves, blah, 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 blah. Yeah, there's a lot of that. That's not what we're talking about here.
No.
There's a lot of narcissists out there. Most of them at the Invictus Games right now. But there's a lot of people out there who add nothing.
But I wonder if that's what you're saying, Russ, is, gosh, Dr. Ritz is saying, put myself first, love myself. But actually, if I do that, will the world think I'm a narcissist? And I want the world to not think that.
But
I think only a narcissist would call you a narcissist for that.
One, I don't care.
And I think the fact, I guess I would say, as a psychologist, the fact that you're even having that thought means you're not a narcissist.
Well, the thing is that it's how you conduct yourself. It's how you conduct yourself that it's all very well having the words, but it's how you actually engage with the world, which is the most important thing, right? So we see so many examples of revolting narcissism given vent and fuel endlessly every minute of every day by social media, mainly by revolting PR companies who just push idiots. And there's my favorite sign is "Stop making stupid people famous." Absolutely true. They have nothing to add to the world, nothing at all. They're there for their own, aggrandizement. It's hopeless, and we see this. And I think it's why I'm angry a lot of the time is I see people who are so transparently awful and empty and facile and basically stupid. And I shouldn't be afraid to use the word stupid. There's a lot of stupid people out there, right? And they're put forward on a pedestal like we should admire this. No, we shouldn't admire. We should ignore those people. They're just terrible people. That's how it is. But we got a very warped view of the world. It's not black. It's not black and white. Well, it's just black and white. There's no grey area anymore.
Yeah, that's a really good point. And that's it. The world is grey. And so are we. So coming back to being fluid and flexible and balanced, we can be great. It doesn't mean that if we are helping ourselves that we're, one way and we can't be the other way. It's this balanced and holistic idea of I can help myself and I can help others.
Yeah.
See, here's an example. I'm going to answer. Can I answer Kimmy? Sorry, Longie. Let me answer Kimmy, if I may, with an example. If I may, Dr. Ritz. And Kimmy's saying this, but I don't begrudge doing things for others. That's fair enough. Neither do I. Even if my first thought was, I can't be bothered. Okay. Maybe I was brought up to be considerate and that makes me feel better. Right. All right. I'll answer it this way. I do mentoring. Okay. I do mentoring for an organization. It's a charity. And I've done it for a few years. I love it. I get as much out of it as the kids that I mentor. They are kids, right? They're like 16, 17. And I'm not 16, 17, so at least I've got some experience to bring to the table. And I love doing it. And that gives me a lot of pleasure. Okay? So that's helping others. But you know what? At the same time, I'm helping myself. Not through ego, not through going on about it, through the actual process. I really enjoy it. A lot.
Yeah.
A lot. Watching somebody grow over a period of months and then the next pupil comes in. It's terrific. And
that's a lovely thing, but that's energizing.
Yeah,
to me, that sounds like purpose,
Yeah, and Kimmy, I would ask you,
really gives you a
don't
sense
begrudge.
of purpose. That's beautiful. No, sorry, go ahead.
I'm sorry, you don't begrudge Kimmy doing things for others, but I have to ask
you
a
pointed
question. Now, hang on. I have to ask you a pointed question. Would you feel guilty if you didn't? Because being brought up to be considerate, there's nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong with considering other people's feelings. Nothing wrong with that at all. But would you do it where, like Russ says, you include yourself in the process and it's mutually fulfilling? Or would you do it from a place of, oh, I really should do it because that's what I was brought up to do and that's what good people do, which is a bit guilt-based? Which one of those two is it, I would ask you?
Let's talk about guilt and shame, because I think people don't know the difference. So guilt is an emotion and it's a normal emotion. It means we are human. It means that we are probably not a psychopath. And it means we have morals. Now, I think what's interesting is people think because they feel guilty, that means they're a bad person. Right? Because you've been taught to be considerate and things like that. Whereas actually, I firmly believe, as a psychologist, as a human being, through my training, living experience, guilt is normal. You need to learn how to tolerate guilt when it comes up, because otherwise what happens is kind of, I feel like what Kimmy's maybe saying a little bit is it turns into shame, which is behavioral based, right? So you can't tolerate your guilt. So you shame yourself into doing something that I couldn't be bothered to do. I didn't want to do it in the first place.
Guilt's horrible, though. I hate it. Absolutely
It
hate
is horrible. It is horrible, but there's
some
ways to manage
people
it.
go through their whole lives feeling guilty. There's got to be a healthy level of guilt and an unhealthy level of guilt, surely.
100%. So I always say that when you're, if you're rating it out of 10, when your guilt has gone above a 6, then your ability to think rationally, to use your prefrontal cortex, where all your rational thinking is going on, where your judgment, decision making is all going on, it's gone offline. It's not possible to use it when it's gone above a 6, because where you're thinking from is the emotional center of your brain, your amygdala.
Amygdala?
Yeah. So what you need to do there is a grounding technique or a breathing exercise to bring your guilt down to about a level of a 3 or a 4, where your rational thinking, your prefrontal cortex, it comes back online. And then when it's a 3 or a 4, your guilt, you'll probably see it's more tolerable. And then you ask yourself there, so what do I need to do now, if anything? What do I actually need to do? Do I need to say yes? Do I need to put a boundary down? Or was this person even asking me in the first place? Or were they just saying something and now I'm just offering? They've not even asked me, but I've just got this habit now of offering. That's what I'm doing.
Yeah.
So
the other thing to do is, if you go out of your way to be helpful, this is just my view. Okay, I'm not saying it's the professional view like yours, but if you go out of your way to be helpful, don't expect big thanks back. Do it because you want to do it. You know, don't do it and then go, and do you know what? They didn't even say thank you. Don't. If you're going in for that reason, you're going to get smacked in the face at God knows how many times.
I've got a good one. What if you're being helpful because you're a bit of a rescuer, and then you get on that drama triangle of rescuer, persecutor, victim?
That's just feeding into the people pleasing again, I think. Yeah.
What about if you feel, all right, this is a big one. No small chat today. It's not like our Friday showbiz show. Right. So here's the thing. What about if you feel really guilty and beaten up about stuff in the past, stuff that you know rationally there's nothing you can do about it. You can't undo the past. The past is gone and it's dead, it's buried, it's finished. You can't change it, but you still feel bad about it.
I think that's really normal. I think we all have experiences like that. And it's coming back to tolerate that, to have a conversation with yourself about that, to have a relationship with yourself about that. You know, one of the things that I often teach in journaling when I send, because I guess the other thing to maybe add is throughout the week, you then get ad hoc messages from me. So there will be like voice notes, which will be a pep talk, or I'll send therapy tools to help you to, you know, use things that I would teach in therapy to work with yourself.
I love this, the psychologist in your pocket. It's really good.
Or brain flossing.
It's fantastic, I got to tell you.
And so one of the things I teach is often we find it so hard to show ourselves self-compassion when we feel guilty. I'm wondering if like a small 7-year-old child came up to you and said, I did this thing a few months ago and I just feel so terrible that I did it. I'm such a bad person for doing that. How would you respond to them?
I would say,
put the gun down and let's talk about it. That's what I'd say.
I would say that everyone does their best given the knowledge and information that they have at the time. Yeah. And sometimes life you can only view in hindsight.
Yep.
So if the same thing happens again, you will have more insight this time round.
Yeah. So what you're both sharing there is, what I would do is I would connect with that 7-year-old. I'd take them in my arms. Yeah. I'd say, put the gun down. Let me hug you. Let's talk about it. Let me give you some adult wisdom that I've got. And you know what? I'm here for you. I'm not rejecting you. But what you were talking about, Russ, is that when we think about things in the past that we've done, we do it from a place of rejecting ourselves.
Yes.
Oh, I did that. I don't like that. Why did I do that?
Yes, perfectly
because
stated.
you feel
So it's the difference between guilt and love and awareness.
Because you
There's
feel
awareness
stupid.
and love on one side and guilt on the other.
You look back on
you
some,
can feel stupid. Absolutely,
you do feel stupid. You think, why the bloody hell did I do that? You know.
Because number one, your
what's
prefrontal
the other
cortex
narrative
was down.
you can bring in.
Hang on. What did you say?
After you,
Dr. Ritz.
You can feel stupid. Absolutely. I'm not talking about erasing any thoughts here, right? Because, for example, on any given day, you have about 60,000 thoughts, of which 80% are negative. Okay.
Yeah.
So what I want you to recognize is just because you think something, it doesn't make it true. So you can have the thought, I think I'm stupid for doing that. But I guess what I'm trying to show you here is you also have the power to have another thought. And I would advocate to then bring in the healthy grown-up adult that's able to have a conversation with a 7-year-old and have that conversation with yourself. And that is exactly what the Reflect with Dr. Ritz is about, is learning the art of having those conversations and those relationships with yourself where you're not rejecting yourself, where you're saying, oh, I feel really stupid for that. Okay, I can understand why you do. But hey, guess what? Put the gun down. You're not stupid.
But the other thing is, of course, you're doing it at the time. You're doing it with the knowledge that you had available to you then, right?
Exactly how Neil said, you did your best that you could at the time.
Now,
Absolutely.
Philip, I would
absolutely.
Philip, respectfully, I disagree with this in some ways. Having past guilt helps you to avoid mistakes in the future. It depends how it's dealt with. If you do it in the way that Dr. Ritz is describing, you take the awareness, give yourself the hug, if you like, take the learnings and move on. That's one thing. But holding on to guilt just grinds people down. And eventually it gets to you and it plays into that inner critic, which it always comes from a place of self-attack, because that's ultimately what it's doing. It's attacking itself. So I would say not necessarily. Having awareness and taking the positive learnings from something and moving on, absolutely. But past guilt, just bearing you down with guilt, and it can be a whole way of life for some people. Yeah. That's how we started this whole conversation, really, isn't it?
Because I think if what we're talking about there, Philip and Neil, is that's almost quite threatening. You know, it's almost like how we say to a child, "See what you did there. I hope you learn to never do that again." That's not how we want to talk to children, is it? It's not how we want to talk to ourselves, to feel threatened to not do something again, rather than from a place of empowerment. Actually, I'm going to try to not do that again because last time I did that, it really didn't work for me, or it didn't work for that other person, or there was consequences to that. So let me use that information coming from a place of kindness, compassion, development, self-awareness to guide myself, and also recognizing mistakes are normal. You know, I mean, there's some big mistakes, that I'm not going to advocate for. Just harming people, absolutely not from that perspective. But I think if we set ourselves up to say, I'm not going to make any mistakes, you've already failed.
Didn't Einstein say, show me someone that's never made any mistakes and I'll show you someone that's never learned anything or never grown or something like that? Wasn't that the quote? Yeah,
something like that. It's something like that. But he also said, if you keep doing the same thing, the definition of madness is to keep doing exactly the same thing and expecting a different result.
So that's where awareness comes in. In
Philip's case, if you've learned from a huge mistake, a small mistake, a mistake, if you learn from it, then you're unlikely to repeat it, because the red flags come up the moment that situation reappears and rears its ugly head. You think, catch me once, shame on me. Shame on you. Catch me twice, shame on me. That's what that is.
And that's why the ability to reflect is so powerful, because when we make a mistake, I always encourage, my journalers and my clients, go and do a post-mortem. Think about, what was the trigger? What were you thinking? What were you feeling? And then how did you behave? And now, because the amygdala has calmed down and you've got your prefrontal cortex back online, what would you do differently? So that's why, I always include that 1% difference for tomorrow. What can I do differently tomorrow? Because we're human beings. We're fallible. And
Kimmy, with respect, and I've known you a long time, on it, Kimmy, we can't conflate some of the ridiculous bullshit which is happening in 2025, especially in Britain, under the lunatics, with what Dr. Ritz is saying. They are two separate things. So, Kimmy, when you say when there are warnings for Shakespeare plays, yeah, grow up. I don't mean you, Kimmy. I mean grow up. All right, stop being pathetic. When you see primary school kids having no respect to adults, unacceptable. I still think you need to make people see consequences. Absolutely.
Yeah, I totally.
You should always see consequences.
Yeah, natural consequences. But again, if you spoke to a child like that, look what you've done. Look what you've done. They're going to take that into their adult world. They're going to talk to themselves like that. They're going to talk to other people about it like that. They're going to treat the world like that. The world's going to be a hostile place. And so it's not that I disagree with what you're saying, Kimmy, but I agree with your message, but maybe not the method.
Absolutely, and it comes back to those firm, kind, respectful boundaries
and awareness. And Asa Don Brown agrees with me. He had a lovely post earlier on, actually. Guilt is derived from a lack of self-acceptance, personal awareness, and willingness to forgive our person. It's about accepting our person beyond all matters, circumstances, and events. And amen to that. Dr. Ace, this is what's big in the psychological community in the USA and Canada, just to make the introduction.
Yes.
So how do you tell them without making them feel guilty? Oh, good question.
Well, that's an interesting question. Well,
it's a great question.
You don't have to do it from a place of nastiness.
Yeah, and also I think the aim, I guess what I'm saying the aim is to never say, I'm going to do this and the other person is not going to feel an emotion, right? So if I'm talking about a child, are we talking about children here, Kimmy? So let's talk, because I think children and adults are two different things when we're dealing with them.
Yeah, you're talking about children.
If we're talking about children, how would I tell them off? I guess I wouldn't necessarily even call it telling them off. I would say, I'd be letting them know whether something is acceptable or unacceptable. And if something is unacceptable, I'd be doing it in a calm way. If I couldn't do it in a calm way, I'd take myself off first until I felt calm to come back. Usually, it doesn't take too long to do something like that. And then I'd be putting the boundary down of, for example, let's say a child is getting cross and wanting to hit me or is shouting at me or swearing at me. So I need to keep myself safe. I'm not going to let you attack me. I'm going to move over to here. Will not allow you to speak to me like that. That is not acceptable. But when you are ready to speak, I am here and I'll be here for you. And then we can talk. So it's letting that person know, letting that child know, I'm here for you, but I will not be here for you under these circumstances.
So I'll invite you up to my level, but I'm not coming down to yours.
Yes, exactly. And also that child has not got a fully developed adult brain. So it is quite normal for children to have tantrums and to kick off and to do those sorts of things. They don't know how to regulate themselves as adults.
Well, why do some people take that into adulthood?
100%.
They never grew up.
They've never learned those skills. They've never learned those skills at all. And often what you find is when you can acknowledge that that person is having a hard time, so just name it, gosh, I can see you're really cross right now. So why don't you go and punch the pillow until you've got it out? Then we can have a chat. With my own kids, when they're having a bit of a meltdown, I will just acknowledge and say what I see. Gosh, you're finding it really tough. I've asked you to turn the TV off and you're not happy with me, are you? No, Mummy, I'm not.
Then what happens?
Then I ask them because I've been doing it from a very young age, what do you need? And do you know what it is? It's not even the TV that they need. They need connection. And both my kids will say, I cuddle, Mummy. So I scoop them up. I cuddle them. Within that time, they've regulated. They've forgotten about the TV.
How old are the babies?
Because these skills, once learned, it doesn't take long for the emotion, energy, if you like, to pass through. Absolutely. It's only when it's resisted and it all gets all clogged up, probably because we're not approaching it in the right way if we haven't learned these skills. But if we haven't learned them ourselves, we can hardly pass them on to two other people.
I'd like to go back to Kimmy's point. I know we've got to let you go, Dr. Ritz, because you're like the busiest person in the world. But
it's been lovely to see you again.
It has. It's been great. Please come back again, because boy, oh boy, are you good. But you know that. The thing about this, a lot of this garbage that Kim is bringing up, I don't mean she's talking garbage. I mean, she's shining a light on the garbage we have to tolerate. A lot of it, I'm sorry to say this, it kicks off with Tony Blair with, everybody's a winner. Nothing is ever anyone's fault. Well, not everybody is a winner. Life really isn't like that. Doesn't mean you're a loser. It just means you didn't pass the finishing line first. That's fair enough. That's how life is. The fact that, no one is to blame. We have a guilt, it's always somebody else's fault. No, do you know what? In life, sometimes it's your fault. But we see so much every day in the media, and people just deflect. It wasn't me, it was this, it was that. And they find every excuse under the sun. And it's sickening. And that rot, that completely recalibration, which is based on madness rather than real life, started back when Blair started doing all that nonsense. And it's just got out of hand. Just got completely out of hand. It's ridiculous.
But then doesn't that show a complete lack of self-defining and self-definition if all of that comes from the words of one politician?
It's not just it's the policies that were. It's not just one guy. Everyone's not thinking he's the Messiah. It's just a naughty boy. They're thinking it was all the policies which then eschewed out and have kept going for 30 years or however long it's been since he came in. You see, I'm going to. Can we continue chatting for a little bit? I'm going to let you go, Dr. Ritz, because I know you've got to go.
Sure. Can I just say, I think I didn't answer the last bit of Kimmy's question, was so to not make them feel guilty. I wouldn't focus on avoiding feelings. It's okay for your child to feel guilty. It's okay for them to feel sad or mad or scared, but it's your job as the adult to tolerate it and to teach them how to tolerate it. So I just wanted to clarify that. Thank you so much, Russ. And
no, thank you. You kidding?
Lovely to see you again.
Will you share the link with everybody in the chat as well?
Yeah.
Yes.
There it is.
Yes, indeed. I will do that right now.
We'll do that. Don't you worry about that.
I'm doing it as we speak. Let's pop a clickable link in there.
Because I want to answer a question before you go, Dr. Ritz. But anyway,
I'm going to take a quick picture if that's okay.
Oh, right.
Help yourself.
No, with all of us. Is that okay?
Of course.
Yeah, you bet.
Well done.
There we go. And we're going to end up with you, Dr. Ritz, coming in from the northeastern United States, live and direct. Dr. Ritika Suk Birak. Lovely conversation. It squintly was. Dr. Ritz, we'll see you soon.
Thank you so much for having me. Thanks for all the comments as well. I really loved it.
Yeah, oh no,
yeah, great show. Lovely to see you, Dr. Ritz. I hope
they resonated with you big time.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
Good afternoon.
Bye. Right, I want to answer a question before I go.
What you got?
And it's this, because there's a very good question. Where's it gone? All right, from Graham Pack. Serious question from Graham. Whose fault was it? Was it for the Labour MP to post file messages? Here's the thing. Some people, if you don't know the story, I really haven't got time to go into it, but he posted, this Labour MP, Gwyn, somebody or other, posted disgusting, vile, horrible, revolting messages about the elderly, about Jews, just horrible. Some people say they were private messages in WhatsApp. It's nobody else's business. Now, if I mess around with Neil and send silly messages, or with Liz, or with Phil Dave, or with Chantal, or with Jonathan Baz, right? We're not public figures. We have no control over you. What we do or what we don't do is irrelevant to your lives. You can watch the show, not watch the show, follow us on social media, not follow us, hire me as a celebrant, not whatever you want to do. When you're in charge of people, when you've been voted in, you are accountable to have certain standards. That's the difference. No one voted me, Neil, Liz, Jonathan, Baz, Chantal, Phil, Dave, anybody. They didn't vote us in. We're just people like you. We're just ordinary people, right? When you're an MP, you are supposed to adhere to at least certain standards. So do you think it's an intrusion on their privacy? I can give a shit, because it shows what vile people they really are, who have utter disrespect. And I would say this from anybody from any side of the house. Utter disrespect they have for you and the sort of people that they really are. That's the difference. Whose fault is it? It's their fault. And it's their leader's fault for allowing it to flourish. They're all complicit. That's my answer on that. And Graham Pack, try telling off a 3-year-old and a 1-year-old. Good luck with. Good luck. It's never going to happen. Longie, what a show! What a show! Wow.
We do our best. I'll see you Wednesday.
Would you
going
like
to join us Wednesday, Russ?
I don't think I can. Wednesday.
I need a guest for Wednesday. Any ideas?
I keep looking, fella. I keep looking, but I tell you, the people that we are being offered, the subjects are just crap. They're just crap. They're just not up to our standard. I'm not being rude, but they're just not. They wouldn't interest the gang. You know, we've got to bring in guests like Dr. Ritz, who the gang go, Jesus, this is interesting. Don't feel guilty.
Thank you for your questions, Kimmy. It's really good.
They were great.
They are great questions. They really are great, great questions, and they open the door for a great debate. So, thank you very much, Kimmy. I was just wondering, maybe Wednesday we could have a bit of fun, do a quiz or something, because I know Kimmy likes a quiz.
Yeah, do it. Yes.
Shall we? Do you fancy that, folks? Wednesday we'll have a midday show quiz.
Oh God, yes, that would be fantastic.
Who's up for it?
Everybody's up for it.
Post a yes in the chat if you're up for a midday show quiz. I'll even send you a prize.
A
hot date with Russ Kane.
Second prize, 2 hot dates with Russ Kane.
We've got Phillips, we've got Kimmy.
All right. There you go. There's your answer straight away.
We're on.
Gang, you are the best.
Fun. We'll do a quiz Wednesday.
Okay. Until then, take care and try and stay out of trouble.
Love you, huggy, squeeze you.
Don't join any dodgy WhatsApp groups. Bye-bye, everybody. Stay safe.